question that interests people the most are the what's the difference between
Yeah.
okay, okay, you're gonna I know your answer, but you're gonna say it again. Okay, so what the difference between the Chinese style Olympic weightlifting and the American style Olympic weightlifting?
This could be by itself, a 4 hour talk. So I'm going to try to be concise because I don't want to bore anybody to death. But it's a really important question because I think it people misinterpret things and they get misled and they get confused. And to me, it's very simple and it's important to understand. So first and foremost, there is no American style. There is no American method or system. It's the opposite. We have a national governing body, USA Weightlifting, that maintains coaching curriculum. No one uses it. And I hate to say that it sounds rude and like demeaning and dismissive, but it's not something that the higher level coaches are reliant on. They're not really learning from that. So we don't have a systematic education system that is really producing the high end coaches. All of our high end coaches are largely self taught. They have to go out and um, try and experiment and screw up and then have some successes. And then we try to talk, I talk to you, I talk to all these other coaches, and I try to find mentors and find resources, on my own and synthesize all that. And that's how, the American system is developed. But that's also why you see such a broad range in what American coaches say, what American athletes look like, how they train. We have everything from, a classic, Soviet style training approach where it's more high volume, some variety, classic sort of periodization schemes, all the way to the other end, which is like almost pure Bulgarian style training where it's basically max single snatch, clean and jerk squat. So we have it all. So to say that there's an American system and then try to compare that to another system, it's impossible. It doesn't make any sense fundamentally. Having said that, uh, it, I think it's important to say like let's compare, the best of the Chinese lifters and coaches to the best of the American lifters and coaches. That at least kind of is making it a more sensible comparison. And I think when we look at that, fundamentally, there's really nothing different. And it's something I find it like equal parts amusing and exasperating when I see information and it's like, you know, something silly like drive with the legs. This is Chinese method. It's like, well, no, that's weightlifting, right? Everybody has to use their legs. We may communicate it differently. We might show things differently, but it's fundamentally the same. And I think that kind of going back to the problem of the misunderstanding is that I think so much of the comparison is disparate demographics. So in other words, some person on the internet is comparing the best of the best elite Chinese weightlifters that they see at the World Championships, at the Olympics. They're comparing what they do and how they train and how they move to say like national level American weightlifters or even lower. And that's crazy. Of course they don't lift the same. But here's a secret. I've watched the national championships of China a few times. There's some really bad Chinese weightlifters at that level. Everybody has them. If you watch early training videos of like some of your favorite, world championship, even world record holders, like when they're learning and they're kind of getting the sport, often they are terrible. And if you saw them lifting and didn't know who they were and was like, oh, look at that dumb American, doesn't know anything about weightlifting. So there's a lot of weird things that go on that influence what people think about this. Um, and I think I'll wrap it up here, but I think the final part of this is that um, part of the problem is, well, not part of the problem, part of the difference that we see is that with Chinese weightlifting, and understand this is from an outsider's perspective, just from what I've learned from talking to Chinese people who are familiar with the Chinese system. Um, it is a far more long-term and systematic process of development, of recruitment, retention, development, right? So if you bring in a child between age 5 and 8 and you develop them systematically to, a senior level athlete, you get a very different result than with what we do overwhelmingly, which is bring in athletes at age 25 and try to cram 10 years of development into 1 year. So when you consider that difference alone, it greatly explains the perceived difference in technical mastery, right? So it's not that there are really significant differences in the principles of technique. I think there are differences in the levels of mastery of those principles due to the ability to recruit, retain, and develop athletes long term. I'm pretty sure that was everything I wanted to say.
Uh, I'm gonna say, if you don't mind, I may share some of my thoughts from my
Of course,
perspective.
that's the idea, right?
Okay. So I started with story happened yesterday. So I've seen. So I'm watching the AWI Singapore Weightlifting International yesterday. So there are lots of athletes coming from the South Asian countries all around, including Japan and the New Zealand, somewhere there. So I'm asking the experience of the athletes. So they were like training in CrossFit or like with the lifting ground for mostly 2 or 3 years. And I also seen retired Chinese athlete, lifters competing at the same stage, but mainly is for the more like for us, although they are athletes, that for us probably just more like amateurs. And then I asked, the one of the committee member of the Singapore Weightlifting Association. So what's your opinion about it? And he said it's good for them because all the amateurs there competing, less high level athlete there will say, okay, I am competing with someone who been chosen and been raised up for more than 10 years since they were kids. And our numbers are close to them. I'm competing with someone with, decades of the lifting background, and our numbers close, and him or she maybe just a little bit, a few kg higher than me, although they still got the first place. So I think it's a really good incentive to the rest of athletes rather than a bad thing.
Yeah.
So what I want to say is the goal. That's the thing I appreciate the American market of Olympic weightlifting. Chinese Olympic weightlifting is more for, it's all state sponsored. The national sponsors all the huge money and the resources are not coming from the athlete themselves. Not because, I love Olympic weightlifting, I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to pay for my coaching fee myself. I'm going to pay for my completion fee, or the travel fee, all of the expenses. All of the expenditure are covered by the country. And they were being selected from very young age, as you said, probably not 5, too young. I've been working with the lowest level, probably we say district level or city level, weightlifting team for 3 or 4 years. So they were selected from age mainly from 7 to 13. 13 is already a little bit old. And then, the best of them gonna be selected to a higher level, and the best of them again going to be selected to the next level, and that's how the best athletes have been filtered up.
Yeah.
And I've been saying, although there are still many athletes like lift the best of them, there's still quite a lot of them at the best level of athlete, but only the resources, the majority of the resources still pulled only a handful of person, not very much. Yeah, just like the elite of the elite, and then they've got their masseuses, probably they got the physiotherapists and everything. So Yet, what's happening with the public, just like I built up the first weightlifting club in China like 8 years ago, the first Olympic weightlifting of China. Although China is very strong in Olympic weightlifting world, right? It's
Yeah.
dominant. Yeah, there were no people really train it until like still nobody train it in like compared to basketball. I think it's the same for Olympic weightlifting in the US. But no, the majority of people go to train basketball, right? The soccer, something like that.
Yeah.
So for 8 years already, we have another Olympic weightlifting gym in China. So we only have two only doing weightlifting.
Yeah, that's a good point too, is, you know, returning to the differences is that it is we are amateurs competing against professionals in essence. You know, our very top lifters can earn stipends. They're generally not enough to actually live on. You know, they still have to pay rent. They still have to often have jobs. You know, they have to cover, you know, physical therapy, massage, all these things. So it's a very different situation from being able to just focus on you sleep, you eat, you train, you eat, you nap, you train, you sleep, and that's your whole life. Um, so yeah, it's, but also just as you said earlier regarding the Singapore lifters, we now, as we've been able to recruit more and more people into the sport in the US, we're winning world championships, you know, senior world championships. We're winning, you know, junior world championships, and you know, we're seeing junior world records and things like that, and Pan Am records, and so the gap is being closed certainly, and we're seeing more and more what some of us have been trying to say for years is that there really aren't secrets out there, right? There's no magic secret that you're going to discover one day from the right Instagram account that's going to propel you to the world championships. It is, it's pretty banal and like obvious things, you know, which is, you know, access to athletes, the ability to retain them and develop them long term, just uh, the talent pool period to draw from. So we're seeing a lot of that change, and we're seeing the effects in the international level. So it's the Americans are terrible at weightlifting and don't know anything argument is getting really, really, really hard to make, but people still make it, of course.
And that's why I like when I went to the US, I like the atmosphere of the lifting way too much because you have the community there. I've seen people, you know, family, like mom, dad, two kids go to get to the local meets.
Yeah.
That's something you cannot imagine here in China, okay? Okay. So the purpose of weightlifting in the US is more like individual choice, but in China it's more like a meta oriented. Although China is strong, but I bet the market in China, but the market in the US gonna be prosperous because people love it. It's self, what was the word? Initiated.
Yes.
And yeah, with the time, people and with probably the business value has been developed. I think more top athletes gonna be sponsored, and that's what I'm suggesting my equipment sponsor as well. You have to sponsor all those top athletes to help them to grow this market.
Yeah.
That's what I suggest to my own sponsors here in China. Okay, and the second, because it's a free market, if it have any chance to grow, it will grow big. So, yeah, I really like look at it really good.